Let's talk about the United Nations. So the United Nations planning to criminalize spreading misinformation that causes social disorder and hatred. So this is the report that comes to us from Natalie Winters over at the War Room. She's doing some great work. Here's the headline: United Nations planning to criminalize spreading misinformation that causes social disorder and hatred. And so she writes, the United Nations has launched a new initiative to counter the use of information and communications technologies for criminal purposes, which appears to apply to individuals who share misinformation. So private companies, including social media platforms like Facebook's parent company Meta, are also involved in this venture. Draft versions of this new convention reveal the United Nations may criminalize posts that promote, quote, hatred. What does that mean, by the way? Including ideological and political hatred. In addition to another vague term that's in this document, extremism. What does it mean to be extreme? Like speaking out against, forced vaccine mandates? Is that
like
extreme?
wearing spandex and bike helmets on a normal bike ride? I mean,
is that extreme? Those, what is extremism?
Well, and it's all subjective. They're all subjective words.
And that's
what's extreme to you is not extreme to me.
And of course, then they get away with this because if they have this draft resolution, it can ruin someone's life. Forget whether or not this ends up like going to a Supreme Court in it doesn't matter, because once they've labeled you this way, you lose your livelihood. Like we've seen in the United States, without having any criminal record or criminal charges brought against somebody, their lives have been ruined because, they've been called extremist. They've been called, politically extreme. So they've had their PayPal accounts shut down, Venmo accounts shut down. They've been debanked. For what? For their political views? That's exactly what's happening, right? I mean, we spoke to Brandon Straka, who was at January 6th. He was there to give a speech. He never went anywhere inside the Capitol. He was outside filming what was going on and had his life turned upside down. He was labeled extreme, right? He was labeled
with a cell phone.
With a cell phone, just filming. He was there to give a speech that day. And then what? He ends up not being able to have like PayPal, Venmo, all of these banking, all of these companies shut him down. So you don't even have to have criminal charges brought against you. It doesn't matter. If they label you this way, then this is what happens. So another piece of this, in addition to the vague term extremism, you have the Chinese Communist Party also submitted proposals to criminalize sharing information that results in social disorder. So that's also part of this UN draft. So China's like, hey, can we add in a little extra phrases over here? The effort began back in 2019 when the United Nations General Assembly adopted a resolution calling for the formulation of a convention on countering the use of information and communications technologies for criminal purposes. Currently, an ad hoc committee is working on details of this, including member states, jurisdictions, focus areas for the convention, which will be formalized in September of 2024. So right now, these UN conventions sort of broadly address information and communications technologies. The new version, though, will be much more specific, and they will put it in the context of criminal purposes. That's the context. Criminal purposes. Quoting now. Criminal purposes. So what exactly constitute criminal purposes, Natalie Winters writes? It's totally vague. It's totally vague. And from the available information about the convention, the term appears to include individuals who spread misinformation. Again, what is misinformation? What the government is actively spreading? Like, is there any criminal charges and for the criminal purposes of the United States government? Spreading
why doesn't propaganda get the same misinformation, disinformation, and propaganda? Why isn't that in there?
I don't know, because Rand Paul said that, right? Rand Paul saying that to Secretary Mayorkas's face. He's like, what the biggest spreader of mis and disinformation in the world is? The United States government. Mm-hmm. So we are the ones that have to be looked out for? No. It's the United States government. We just did a whole report last week on Iran. The United States government actively creating fake accounts inside of the FBI and the intelligence community to create and foment war and regime change in Iran. Fake accounts. And they're worried about us. They're worried that we're going to actually uncover them and spread the truth. So the most recent draft of the convention explains how the UN is working with countries to promote, facilitate, and strengthen international cooperation. So there's an example here we'll put up on the screen. At face value, the forms of speech the UN is trying to curtail may seem justified, but the broad scope of what constitutes subversive posts or the promotion of political or ideological hatred could easily be used to target content critical of the far left globalist agenda of groups like the UN or the World Economic Forum. So, for example, on your screen, Article 29 of the draft document focuses on terrorism-related offenses, calling on countries to criminalize commissioning, inciting, or recruiting terrorism, which it defines as spreading of strife, sedition, hatred, or racism. So you could be accused of terrorism if you spread strife. Like if you speak out against the World Economic Forum for being a globalist cabal. Or shining a light on their agenda, right? I mean, would that be considered strife, Philip? Like or sedition?
Well, yeah,
like
that's what I was getting at, because if my words cause strife, that means what they're saying is it's illegal for me to piss people off.
Right.
Like if I make somebody else angry, I don't have to be angry myself. But if my words make somebody else angry, I have just created strife.
Right.
So it would be so my livelihood could very well depend on how somebody else interprets what I said.
Right.
Right, because you can't, these days, if you misgender somebody, that is an act of aggression. So that's even beyond what they're saying.
Right. Oh, it's hatred or hatred or racism. I'm sure they'll include, right now they've got hatred, racism, sedition, and strife. I'm sure they will have in there additional for, for gender as well. Like we got racism.
Well, that's why they keep, I always say this, they keep these things purposely vague, because then they'll sell it as, no, we're only saying this, it's hate, it's whatever, but it is totally left to interpretation and can then further be expanded and use the same words. Because no, all of a sudden now this is hate, this is strife, where before it was just going to affect this. It's not nefarious, it's going to only affect this small thing. Yeah. It's just hate, we don't want people getting upset, and then it expands. That's what always happens.
But back to the World Economic Forum piece of this, so it's strife, I guess, if I call out this globalist cabal and tell you what they're going to do to our lives, when I'm pointing out these panels and exactly what their plans are, and oh, by the way, what they have already done to us, that's creating strife, or that's hatred, or that's creating social disorder. That's another term. If there's anything that creates serious social disorder, you could be labeled a criminal. But see, the thing is,
now, I'm guessing. I'm guessing this does not apply, though, to politicians or the insanely wealthy. They can do whatever they want. I'm sure that, a politician, what they would just consider that riling up your base, and that's not considered causing strife. That's just, going for votes, I guess. I'm assuming.
I don't know. I mean, I guess if you're on the right or you're a conservative, then they'll probably come after you. Like they will label, they'll go after Donald Trump for that, But if it's on the left, then that's free speech, and
right.
You're fine. If Black Lives Matter goes and destroys a building, and people online tell them where to meet to be a part of it, that's democracy.
That's grassroots organizing,
right? So, a couple of things. I'll wrap it up with this. Because some of the participants in this, the participants include Amazon Web Services. So just think, David, you can speak more to this than I can, but Amazon Web Services runs almost the entire internet, right? So if Amazon is involved in this policy, they can tell you, they can pull everything down. They run everything.
That's so a couple examples, if you're on Netflix or whatever, all of a sudden there's a network outage, and then Walmart doesn't work, and Amazon, certain things don't work, and the whole internet, people are like, oh my gosh, I can't stream my services. That's because almost everything is hosted on Amazon. And we saw with Parler what Amazon is able to do if they don't agree with what you're what's on your app or what's on your website or whatever. They can just shut you down. They completely killed Parler in like a 48-hour period.
Yeah, because the entire server infrastructure is run on Amazon Web Services. Heck, the reason that Amazon is so successful is because of that initial contract that they created with the CIA, and the CIA paid them. So they're very, very cozy with the CIA.
Our show actually is running on Amazon servers, just FYI.
Great.
So, yeah.
Yeah, the sad part is it's like, I mean, yeah, and what do you do? I mean, how do you get around that, right? I mean, I don't know.
You can't, because there's nobody else that provides it for the price. You know, if you look at other server infrastructures, you can move away from it, but the price just like triples. And so that's how they get you, because like they did with books. When Amazon first opened, they're like, let's sell everything at a loss or write for cost, and we'll get rid of our competition, and then we'll expand the prices. So it's like you're kind of in a catch-22, because when you're just getting started, you can't afford to go out and spend, you know, all these thousands of dollars to host things. You have to start small, and Amazon makes that possible, but then it gives them total control.
Yeah, unfortunately. And then they want to shut down independent creators and content, and that's how they control things. Well, so, you know, here you've got the participants, Amazon Web Services, the Chamber of Commerce of the United States of America is a participant. Facebook's parent company, Meta, and Microsoft are participating in this. Interpol has participated in the discussion about the convention and the prominent threats they say that they must face, including misinformation. And we learned about this. We have Gutierrez, of course, the head of the United Nations. They're speaking at the World Economic Forum, basically telling us exactly what's going to happen with speech and misinformation. Watch.
Yes, but there is a responsibility of the platforms. I mean, one can argue if we have something, as you mentioned, in the media, and if someone is attacked in a way that is wrong, there is a possibility to go to the court. In social media, there is no responsibility. And I can understand the argument of social media platforms saying, well, this is put by people, so it's not our responsibility. But the truth is that the algorithms are made in such a way that they amplify in a preferential way a certain number of things. And when the algorithm amplifies, then there is, in my opinion, a responsibility, and there should be accountability, including through the legal system in relation to those situations. At least when false information, defamation, all other kinds of things are benefited, are not only just what someone puts, but are benefited by the way the algorithm amplifies that. That creates, in my opinion, a responsibility of the platform.
Yeah, so when it's being amplified, like, so if you have something that goes viral.
When it's popular.
Right. Yeah, when it's popular, it's going viral. It's up to that platform to stop it, to squash it. It's just like we've seen, you know, like we saw in the story we featured earlier about Pfizer, you know, and how in cahoots they are with big tech. And so when they want to scrub something, they just get on the phone to their friends at Google, and they're like, hey, can you scrub this off the internet? There's some people talking trash about us here. You know, all that money we funneled to you through advertising and everything, we're going to pull that advertising. Can you please scrub the internet of these guys? So it works. It's just really troubling.
So my fear is, you know, with all of this is, if this does make its way into federal law, like they are able to say, okay, these are the things that we consider hate right now at this point, and this is a federal law. At that point, what do Rumble, what do Locals, what do those platforms do? Can they do anything even if it's hosted on their own server? Does it have to be behind a paywall, a private login? Like, what is going to be the things that they can do to keep free speech alive? Like, this is something that could ultimately take it down if this is allowed to move forward, right?
Right. I mean, because you're seeing, the thing is, you know, the United States has free speech, you know, it has a First Amendment, but the United Nations does not. And we're seeing, as we have these discussions about the future of the world, nation states are obsolete. So that is not a concern for these globalists anymore. Like, oh, you've got boundaries, you've got borders, who cares? We're the World Health Organization, so give us the power. We're the United Nations, give us the power. We will set the laws, set the agendas. And if you, little country over there, decides to do it some way, well, that's on you. And you're going to be adherent to the larger global laws. And that's where we're heading. So we'll see how long free speech actually stands. We can see that it's already crumbling in the United States. I mean, do you really think we have free speech that much anymore? I mean, really? I don't. I mean, we have it in part, but at the end of the day, when big tech actually controls everything, it's the power center, not Washington, then you can stand on your balcony and yell like you're, what's his name from the movie Coming to America at your neighbors, but no one can hear you, right? If a tree falls in the woods, no one can hear you because all these social media platforms have shut you down and you've been debanked because of something you said. Is that truly free speech anymore? I don't think
Well,
so.
and Phoenix Snake in the chat says that we're triggering their strife, so we're just going to have to end this segment because that's, is that what's going to happen? Like people like, you're triggering my strife and we have to stop, otherwise they can like charge us with strifing people.
Oh, yeah, strifing people. Move over, instead of Stripe, move over to Strife. I'm going to start my own company called Strife for all my payment centers. Strife.
You think you're strifed now? Just you wait. Somebody hold my beer. I'm gonna say some really strifeful things.
Strifeful things. Next, I'm going to open up my own app called Chapped. Chapped and Strifed. Chapped and Strifed. Thank you so much for watching this segment here at Redacted. We are live every day at 4 p.m. Eastern time, trying to share the stories that the mainstream media will not cover. You should also come over and join our community of Redacted Rebels over at redacted.inc. That's our private locals community where we can share exclusive content that we simply cannot share here on YouTube. Come over and join the rebellion together right now by going to redacted.inc. We'll see you next time.